Many of you will recall about a year and a half ago, I had a very clear vision for what I wanted Doc, my Jeep Gladiator, to become. The concept of this trail aid station, which was going to honor my military brothers and sisters and bring awareness to first aid, something that's super important when we're out here in the wilderness. And well, after a year and a half of having some incredible adventures, things have kind of changed in my life, my personal views, and for what I want Doc to become. Let me explain. So what I'd like to do today, assuming that Luna cooperates, is give you guys an update on all the things that have been done to Doc recently. Specifically, I want to talk about the shocks. These shocks have been a really incredible upgrade, and we'll take a deep dive in here because there's a lot to talk about. And then I want to give you an update on what the plan is going forward in the future with this Gladiator, because things have changed. And let's just start by talking about my trip up to the Arctic. And that was a life-changing trip. You have a lot of time to think when you're driving on the road for 30 days and sitting out at camp, staring off into beautiful scenery. I mean, that's what we love doing, is getting out here. Yeah, you're feisty right now. And I can tell you that there were a couple realizations I had on that trip. One is that I don't think possessions equal success. It doesn't really matter what you drive or the gear you have. It really matters about the relationships you have, whether it's family and friends, and the experiences that you have that actually measure success. At least that's my vision of it. And also, I came to the realization that I don't need 10 vehicles in my driveway. And so things have changed. It's been kind of, I don't know, freeing a little bit to say goodbye to some things. And I'm going to say goodbye to a few more things. Not everything, but a few things. But I need Doc to be kind of my all-around adventure vehicle, to be able to take me deep into the backcountry, be extremely capable, be comfortable to camp out of, be comfortable for this little one. And that's why it's been time for a big change. So let's do a walk around of the Gladiator, talk about some of the things that have been refreshed and some of the things that you're going to see behind me that are not here anymore because we're making some pretty big changes. And then we'll talk a little bit about the total vision for the future. All right, let's start under the hood. I think Doc is actually not feeling well. So on cold starts, there's a little tick. And I talked to my buddy Jerry over at Shift Auto Works, and we're pretty sure that it might be a lifter. So I'm going to be taking this in to him to have him take a look at it. It's still under warranty. I've got about 30,000 miles, and they're 30,000 hard miles. But I plan on putting another 100,000 hard miles on this Gladiator, and I need to make sure it's perfect. So let me get that sorted here quick. Now you can see it's pretty dirty under here, but the engine is stock, except that we do have the snorkel, and that does help keep dust out of that filter, which is much needed. Did upgrade the alternator, so this is I believe that's a 430 amp hour. I don't know, is it amp hours or just amp? I guess it's just amp alternator. I have the S-Pod, and then I'm still working on cleaning up my wiring. I've probably rewired a few things more than once, but yeah, that's always a work in progress. But otherwise, it's a stock 3.6. Now, I love the front look of the Gladiator. I love how this has turned out. The full width bumper. I did swap out the lights, so these are the KC Titans, so they've got that amber backlit to them. With the snorkel, all of it, it just looks like it's ready for adventure. I love it. Real quick before we continue on, I gotta ask, have you taken a basic first aid class? And if you had, how long ago was that? Have you done a refresher recently? If you haven't, I would encourage you to check out something like the American Red Cross, where they have online courses, or you can get in-person courses, information on ones that are available in your area. And if you are not carrying a good quality first aid kit, we have the TrailRecon trauma kit over at trailrecon.com. You can go check that out, guys. I encourage you to get some training and make sure you carry the right gear. All right, let's hop on over to the side. Now, yes, this is my third set of tires in a year and a half. I started out with some 35 all-terrain tires, and I had convinced myself that that was the right tire for this build. And then after being out on a few adventures, I realized, you know what? 37s are the right tire for me. So I put on some 37-inch mud terrains, which They were heavy and loud, and I knew that was going to be the case, but I need to make sure that this thing is comfortable to drive on very, very long expeditions, and it's quiet. And so that's why I went back with the old tried and true BFG all-terrains. And so those are on here, and I'm still running the AEV wheels, which I just love the way they look, and I love the offset. Now, what I really love about overlanding and off-roading is there's always something new to learn. There's so much about everything we do that you can just take a deep dive into so many things and still not know it all. And I know a lot about shocks, but I didn't know a lot about external bypass shocks. And Bilstein is a company that is not too far from where I live. And I reached out to them last year and I said, hey, can I come get a tour of the facility? It'd be super cool. And they said, yeah, come on out and bring your Gladiator. And full disclosure, the shocks we're going to talk about, they did provide to me to do this review, but I'm always going to be open and honest with you guys. These are 8100 external bypass remote reservoir shocks. And let me tell you, I had no idea how much of a change this was going to make on how it feels on-road and off-road. I'm absolutely blown away. These shocks are pricey when you compare it to other shocks, but when you think about how much you spend for wheels and tires, they're really not that expensive. And I always thought that these were for like the Baja racers, and I can now tell you that that's not the case. If you have the means to buy a shock like this, I think it's worth it. Now, let's jump back 6 months when I visited Bilstein, and let me show you how that tour and that little bit of knowledge that I got dropped on me went. Now, walking into the Bilstein assembly area, I knew these guys were serious about shocks, but seeing the process firsthand, that took my appreciation to a whole new level. This isn't about some massive assembly cranking out cookie cutter suspension parts. Each shock is built, tuned, and tested with a crazy level of precision. Now for my Gladiator, they installed a full set of Bilstein 8100 external bypass shocks. And if you're not familiar with bypass shocks, here's the gist. They let you fine tune how your suspension responds at different points in the shock's travel. So instead of one size fits all with dampening force, these shocks actually adjust dynamically, softer for smaller bumps, firmer for when you really need control. One of the coolest parts I found interesting to watch and learn about was valve shimming, basically stacking thin metal discs inside the shock to control oil flow. This is where the magic happens. The way those shims are arranged determines how the shock behaves, and getting it dialed in just right is equally part science and a little bit of an art. Once they had assembled everything, the shock goes to the dyno tester, which, if you've never seen one of these, it is basically a torture test that cycles the shock through its full range of motion while measuring its performance. It's a little mesmerizing to watch, but what really matters is that they ensure every shock is set up perfectly before it even touches my Jeep. With the shock install done, it was time for a test drive, and right away I could feel a difference. That double bounce I used to get over dips, gone. Instead of the suspension overreacting and rebounding too much, it now just soaks up the little hits and settles immediately. We made a few adjustments, tweaking compression and rebound to get everything to feel just right, and I have to say, this is the most planted and predictable Gladiator, and honestly any Jeep I've ever owned has felt. Bilstein has done this for over 60 years, and after spending a day in their shop, I get why they've built such a solid reputation. But more importantly, I can feel the difference every time I hit the dirt now. All right, I hope you found that as fascinating as I did. That was a pretty cool little tour and just dropping some knowledge about how these shocks actually work. Now, before we hop in the back and talk about where my cap and my roof rack are, just a couple things here in the interior. I have still the S-Pod over here, which has been a great place to have that mounted. No issues with that. I did install a ham radio in here, but I actually like the ICOM radio that I have in the Land Cruiser, and I think I'm going to take that same radio and install it here. It's dual band, it's a little more power. I just got to figure out where I want to put the faceplate, but I'm definitely going to do that. You'll notice that seat covers are gone. Two reasons for that. One, dog hair. So dog hair sticks to everything, and they were kind of getting a little faded, and so it was just time to say goodbye. So back to the basic black Jeep seats, and I may I may do something custom. I've done that a couple times with a couple of my Jeeps, do some custom leather seats. So we'll see. Nothing on the plan right now. The hot head liners, I love these things. This one, the adhesive is not sticking so great. I need to redo that one. And then in the back is that battery box that I kind of customized a while back with my, radio batteries and camera batteries on the top. Well, that's going to go away. That's going to go in the truck bed. And then I'm going to figure out a place in the rear for Luna. So those are some of the changes inside. Now let's talk about the big changes on the outside. You get so used to a vehicle and how you've built it that sometimes you forget all the things that you've done. And I'm trying to remember everything as I go along, but I will say the Goose Gear platform system, so I did the entire seat delete in the back, has been so invaluable. I mean, I don't even think about rear seats in this thing anymore. The storage space that this provides both under the platform and on top of the platform has been incredible. And so I'm gonna build a little bed out of here for Luna. Also under my front seat, I have the air Kraken system installed for about 2 months now, and it is my favorite way to air up tires. Also the mud flaps, so I've been running these mud flaps for well over a year now, and they look like it, but they have been a saving grace keeping my truck clean. Lastly, on the rear, I do have those KC Cyclones. It's a little bit of a custom job that I did, and those have still been holding up really, really well. All right, let's start with, no, there is no more roof rack on here, because I'm gonna need the clearance, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Some of you may be noticing that my high water fording exhaust that MagnaFlow helped me build is not on here at the moment. And we just have this little turn down pipe right here, which still looks pretty cool, but it doesn't look as cool as the high water fording exhaust, which was kind of a tribute to, my time in the military. Well, don't fear. It's actually getting refreshed. So we're having it re-Cerakoted. Plus, we had that mounted to the roof rack up top. And so it needs a point up here to have something to hold on to. And so once we get things dialed in here, which we'll talk about, then we'll get that thing back installed. So this right now is just temporary. So the cap that you have been used to seeing on here for the last year is gone. And so I had the Overland Vehicle Systems stainless steel topper on here, and that thing held up incredibly well. It was nice to have that on those long trips. We abused it on many, many miles, and having a place to securely store all my stuff was extremely important. But I knew all along, even when it was the trail aid station concept, that I needed something that I could sleep inside and still be able to secure. So a month from today, there'll be something new going on here, and I will unveil that. And yes, I'm leaving a little bit of a teaser, because what fun is it if we can't have a little bit of a surprise? And then I will be working hard to do a little bit of a build out back here before our next bucket trip adventure. Sean and I already have a bucket trip adventure planned for this year. So more to come on what's coming on in the back here. I'm really excited about this next phase. All right, so I started this video by talking about how that trip was so life-changing for me. And I really mean that, guys. Like, I just want to do so many more trips like that in my life. I'm not getting any younger. And, there's so many places I want to go see. And that Arctic trip was just, it was eye-opening. It was like, yes, this is what I want to do. And so I want to do more and more of that. And having a fleet of vehicles that I have to do maintenance on, and I got to register and insure and think about content all the time, well, it was just distracting from what I really want to do. And so I'm only going to have a few vehicles now. And this dock is going to be kind of primary. And I'm really looking forward to really making this just the perfect expedition vehicle for me. Now, still going to have a nod to my military brothers and sisters. Still going to do my best to promote first aid with it. And I think we can still achieve that without it being a concept vehicle. That vision was kind of cool, and I was really excited about it. Yeah, it was just that trip. I was like, that's not what I want to do in my life. I don't want to build SEMA vehicles. I don't want to build concept vehicles. I want to build vehicles like this that are going to take me on incredible adventures. And yes, you too. So a little bit of change, guys, a little bit of change in life, a little bit of change in maybe the direction of the channel. I don't know. Just keeping it real with you guys. I wanted to check in with you. A lot of people have been asking about the Gladiator because we've been doing a lot of Land Cruiser content. So now you know what's going on. with the Gladiator, and you'll see it here in a couple weeks when we make the big change. I'm excited for that. So make sure you hit subscribe if you've never been here before. Check us out over at trailrecon.com and pick up that first aid kit. Until next time, safe travels.